This video is brought to you by Hiawatha Hobbies. Hiawatha has you covered for all your model railroading needs, whatever scale or era you model. Be sure to check them out at the link in the description. The GE-940C was a 4,000 horsepower diesel locomotive that was built by GE Transportation Systems of Erie, Pennsylvania between January 1995 and March 1995. The C40-9 was equipped with the 16-cylinder 7 FDL-16 prime mover, which was rated at a lower power than the 4,400 horsepower GE-944CW that debuted a year earlier in 1994. The C40-9 featured the standard cab design and was the only model in the -9 series to do so. It is essentially identical to the wide cab C40-9W model otherwise. All units had a rooftop mounted air conditioner, which gave them their distinct top hat look. Norfolk Southern was the only operator of this model. The company owns 125 units numbered 8764 to 8888 and has specifically requested the standard cab and may have purchased more units if the FRA, or Federal Railroad Administration, had not required them to purchase the wide cab version instead. Today I'm going to be reviewing the GE C40-9 from Scaletrains in their rivet counter line. You can pick one of these up for yourself from Hiawatha Hobbies for $269.99. This unit is equipped with ESU lock sound and it has a ton of details. The box on this model is very well done and will hold it for many years to come. Inside you have an operator's manual, which shows you all of your functions and some basic CVs. To access the locomotive, you have to lift this piece of foam out, and then you can see the locomotive. Then you can lift out the block of ice, slip off this plastic sheath. This unit does have extra bearing caps, just in case you lose some. And then you can unclip the locomotive on this end, lift up the box, and take the locomotive out. Make sure to remove these truck retainers before you set it down, or else the locomotive will fall down on its side and it could damage it. So be sure to take these out before you do anything with the locomotive. And those can just go back in the box so that you can keep track of them. And then you can also remove the handrail protectors. Let's start on the details on this locomotive. On the front of the locomotive, there is a die-cast metal knuckle coupler, air hoses, MU cables, and a very well-detailed plow with grab irons on the top. There's another MU cable right here, which is separately applied and painted red. There's also a coupler cut bar. Here are the two deck-mounted LED ditch lights that do flash when the horn is sounded. Here's the Norfolk Southern horsehead logo, and there's wire grab irons on all sides of that. You might be able to see right here, this little black patch right here, there is a light behind that, which is a walkway light, which looks very good and is on whenever the prime mover is on. On the top of the nose, there are two wire grab irons and two sand filler hatches. There are also separately applied etched metal windshield wipers on all the windows. Here are the LED illuminated number boards, which again are controlled with F8, so whenever the prime mover is on, these are lit, and then the LED headlight. On the top, there is a tiny label right here indicating that the front headlight on this unit would be a 74-volt incandescent bulb. There's also the air conditioner with the separately applied etched metal grate on the top and etched metal grates all along the sides. Since this model is represented in the early years of NS owning these particular units, it does still have the little label here indicating that it is still under warranty from General Electric. On the side of the locomotive, you have an etched metal sunshade, separately applied mirrors, and cab windows that do move. I can't show it very well on camera, but the interior of this cab is absolutely ridiculously detailed. There are tons of separately applied parts, and it is probably one of the best cab interiors I've seen so far. All of the handrails on this model are very well done and will hold up very well for years to come. Moving to the side of the locomotive, you can see the dynamic brake hatches, which are separately painted to make them pop a little bit more. There's also tons of tiny little warning decals all over the place. And there's also a small box which appears to be made out of etched metal grates, which looks very good. There are also small grab irons right here on the side of the dynamic brake blister. Moving a little farther down, you can see the large Norfolk Southern logo, which is very well done with no major paint defects. There's also a grate right here, which again is painted a little different color just to make it stand out a little bit. Moving back to the radiator section, all of the grates on this are etched metal and see-through. Right here on the bottom section is where the speaker is housed. This is not as see-through as the top, but there are a few sections on the sides where you can see through the locomotive all the way. And on the top there is a large fan housing, and it is entirely see-through right here. On the rear of the locomotive there are more air hoses, die-cast metal knuckle coupler, wire grab irons with tiny labels above them, another MU cable, and then the two deck-mounted LED ditch lights. Now these operate in reverse and they do flash when the horn is sounded, but for some reason on this particular model, only this one worked and it sporadically worked, and this one never worked at all. Above that there is the NS logo with wire grab irons right here and all the way up the side here, as well as the the two numbers. There are also little hatches right here on the radiator vent, and then two little blisters right here. And there's also a sand filler hatch. Might be a little difficult to see, but the handrail right here is broken off, but that is easy enough to fix. You could just glue it right back onto the stanchion. Fuel tank detail is very good on this model. There are the two air tanks, and there's separately applied piping that runs in between all of the air tanks. There's also piping that runs along the entire sill of the locomotive. The fuel filler cap is painted red to have it stand out, and then there's also a fuel gauge right here, which is also separately painted. The trucks on this model are very well done and have a lot of separately applied detail on them, including brake cylinders and all the separate piping that goes in between all the brake cylinders. There's also a rotating bearing cap here, although for some reason this pilot truck has the rotating bearing caps, but then this rear one does not have the rotating bearing cap. I'm not entirely sure why Scaletrains would have the rotating bearing cap on the front but not on the back truck. I'm sure that there's some valid reason behind it though. Moving to the top of the locomotive, you can see this radiator section, which has separately applied etched metal grates on top of it, which are a little hard to see since this locomotive is all black. And then underneath that, there are grates that have been painted a slightly different color, just like the rest of the locomotive, so that they stand out a little bit. This radiator section looks very good, and I think that these grates on here are going to stay on for a while. They seem like they're going to stick to the model extremely well. Here you can see the exhaust stack, which is slightly see-through and painted silver. There's all sorts of details on top of the locomotive with these doors and tiny door latches. And then there's also the K5LA-R24 horn, which is Norfolk Southern's favorite horn. I believe that this is a brass horn, and it looks very good, and it is one of the more detailed horns that I've seen. Scaletrains does an amazing job with their horns, and they make sure that they look as prototypical as possible, just like they do with the rest of the model. You can also see that this unit is equipped with the dual antennas, which are very sturdy and will probably not be falling off anytime soon, although I still would be careful with them since they are protruding off the top of the locomotive, and if you yank on them too hard, they will break. One thing that I noticed about this model is that the shell appears to be slightly loose and does not seem to be attached securely to the frame. While the coupler pockets will hold the shell on and prevent it from coming off, I wouldn't lift it by the shell, I would lift it from the fuel tank, which you probably should be doing with all of your locomotives regardless, since a lot of locomotives, especially Jeep-type locomotives, the dynamic brake housing is removable. So if you just grab it by the dynamic brake housing, you could end up dropping it. So I would get in the habit of grabbing your locomotives by the fuel tank, avoiding the handrails, and holding it like that. This unit, of course, is equipped with an ESU power pack, which will keep it running over dead spots on your layout. This is a very convenient thing to have, and I want to install one on all of my locomotives. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.